for like an hour and 15, I think.
Squirrel.
Yeah.
And I have sniffed so much Yeti that my head immediately became shaped for a flat brim.
When did you know you really liked Cameron?
We became buddies like immediately.
Like right off the bat?
Friends. Yeah. Well, I had him on my podcast. It's the first time I met him. And he brought me a Hoyt bow. So how could I not love him?
I did.
What did you think when that happened?
I thought I made it.
I love it.
I thought I finally made it.
This is Tim Burnett with Solo Hunter, and you're listening to my favorite podcast, The Gritty Bowman.
I just Randy Black Eagle.
That's it. Boom.
That's my.
That's how we roll. Just drop the mic and walk away.
On this episode of Gritty Bowman, we visit with Shannon Mobbs and Cory Ford of Angry Spike Productions, and we talk Roosevelt elk hunting. I remember when I bought my first Angry Spike Productions DVD more than 10 years ago. I bought the DVD from good friend Cory Miller at a trade show, who was in a couple of those early DVDs. I remember watching these guys call in elk on over-the-counter tags in thick coastal rainforest country. Shannon Mobbs can hunt Roosevelt elk. He's a Roosevelt killing machine, and his wall at home displays some amazing coastal bulls, which I have included in the video version of this podcast. He's also been blessed to shoot a Rocky Mountain bull elk on a draw tag that scores just shy of 400 inches. Shannon knows how to hunt elk. He's been consistently getting it done in the elk woods for multiple decades. On this podcast, he shares his opinions and experiences calling in elk. It's a fascinating show whether you're into Roosevelt elk hunting or not. In many ways, an elk is an elk is an elk. Angry Spike Productions quit producing DVDs a few years ago. So we got them set up online, and now you can digitally download their old DVDs on a link on the Gritty Bowman website. Just go to GrittyBowman.com and click the VHX link and follow the prompts from there. It's a cool thing. I have tremendous respect for anybody who attempts to film and produce video content from their hunts. These guys have done it. The footage is a little old, but the call-ins and the bugling are solid. I learned a lot from watching these guys hunt on these old films. Listen to this podcast and see what you think. And if you want, go download one of their videos from our website and enjoy some raw and real Roosevelt elk hunting. And hopefully, these guys will produce a new film this year. Get on Instagram and follow them at Angry Spike Productions, and feel free to send them your questions and to bug them about producing a new and updated elk hunting film for 2016. Rumor has it, they're sitting on tons of great elk hunting video. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Bowman Podcast. I'm here in Woodland, Washington, with Angry Spike Productions. I've got Shannon Mobbs here, kind of the what do we call you? Like the originator, the president, the OG.
He is the OG right there. Go. That is it. Yeah.
And then we've got Cory Ford. I knew that. Yeah. Cory Ford
drives the Ford.
And we're going to talk Roosevelt elk hunting because Shannon's kind of like a foremost expert on this. And as is obvious by the trophy room we're in, which the man cave, which I've got some video for those that are listening. If you want to see some spectacular Roosevelt elk, you've got to take a look at the video on this film. I'll put it in the intro. But I first came across Angry Spike Productions, I don't know, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was at a sportsman show, and I ran into Cory Miller.
Mm-hmm.
And Cory and I started talking at XXX Archery, Cory Miller. And, you know, he was selling a DVD, Angry Spike Productions, and he had a couple DVDs, I think, at the time. And then he had some Sitka gear. That was like, it was the first, we only went to the sportsman show to actually put our hands on it because we'd seen commercials.
First edition.
Yeah, first edition. He only had a few things to choose from. You could pre-order some clothes if you wanted it, but it was like the new clothing for the hunting industry. It was cool. And anyway, we got the video, and then the DVD, the Angry Spike Productions DVD.
Mm-hmm.
We came home and popped it in, and then we proceeded to watch it 50 million times. And you know, it's right here in our backyard. It's sort of like the discovery of black-tailed deer for the first time.
Yep.
It was like,
It's raw hunting.
there's a whole bunch of animals back here. We didn't really know we're roaming the woods because we always went with our dads to the east side and would rifle hunt, Rocky Mountain elk. And we're used to elk over there. And now I'm hearing they're over here on the beach.
You can see them over there.
Yeah.
These ones over here, you can't see them.
Yeah. And it just, we knew of them. And my buddy Anthony had been hunting Roosevelt. He's killed a couple. But we had, of course, known from, everyone we talked to that Roosevelt's, one, they never bugle, and two, they're small. So why hunt them?
That's exactly right.
So those are the two things. And then we get this Angry Spike Productions film. We're talking to Cory Miller, and he's like, oh, no, it's not like this, And then we went and watched the film, and sure enough, you got all these bulls screaming at you, and you guys are killing these great bulls, and it was just a neat video to come across. So been following your work ever since. I've seen, I think, all of the film that you guys have produced. And there's a lot of people out there in our area that know about it, but there's a ton of people across the states that don't know about it. And Roosevelts are a highly just like blacktail, Colombian blacktail. They're highly undervalued and underhunted.
Well, they're tough.
They are.
This country is tough.
It is, and that's the thing. Most people come here and they're like, I can't hunt the jungle like this. So we got you on the show today, and we're going to pick Shannon's brain about hunting elk. And first of all,
a good idea.
Before we got into the podcast, we were talking about how the fact that Roosevelts don't talk was, and you knowing that they do, was sort of. You were telling me a story about your teacher in school.
Yeah. So my forestry teacher, so early on, before we started actually filming our hunts, we were getting these bulls to come in. Brad Croco and myself, who is one of the original four guys.
Yeah.
Myself, Brad, Cory Miller, and Ken Gola were the four guys that actually created ASP. And Brad Croco and I hunted together for years and calling bulls in, just bugling at them. And everybody would tell us, that Roosevelts don't do that. So I got a little 8mm camera.
And how'd you get into calling? Because that was still kind of uncharted territory also.
Well, honestly, the Larry D. Jones, those VHSs, I'd watch those. And I'd hear our Roosevelts bugle from time to time. So these elk communicate, and in order for something to, if they communicate to each other, you should be able to communicate back and forth to them. So
yeah,
I just started rolling with that, and that idea, it got me into calling, sitting in my truck trying to make a bugle, for hours. And, so, and then finally figuring out how to get these animals to respond and what keys there is to get them to react to you. And just slowly learning and building. And over the course of years and years and years, we're now down to the point where usually we get an answer. We can usually get in on him. And most of the time, we can get him to come in. Not every time. It wouldn't be hunting if it was every time. But, yeah. So, Brad Croco and myself started filming it because no one would believe us. So, we started filming and showing people. And we actually, in the very beginning, made a VHS tape called Smack Dab Elk Hunting. And so, there's some pretty raw stuff on that.
So, tell me, why do you think people had that impression? Because you got out there and you found that they do talk.
I think with this community here, Southwest Washington, it's heavily logged. The majority of the population here learn that road hunting, driving down the road, spotting an animal, being the first at the clear cut in the morning, getting the first shot is how you are successful.
Right.
And so in archery, and back in like 96, 97, they closed the gates to all the private timber company. So by doing so, allowed us to hunt at a different level, a much slower pace, and more intimate with the animals.
The first one to run in on a logging road and claim the road and the clear cut.
Yeah.
It slowed us down, and we now became part of the environment instead of just rushing in to seeing, hurry up and get that shot. So it all kind of came together like that, and showing people, and it's slowly catching on, and we're learning how to do it. So our filming it became more and more we got more and more interest in actually making a video. And so that's when, in 2005, we filmed our first one that we released. So
what was that one called?
That was season 2005. The idea, the goal then was to do one every single year. Didn't realize how much work it really was.
Well, editing a film, especially even like in 2005, the software used to edit a film, that was no treat. That wasn't.
Yeah, if you didn't have Adobe Premiere, because there were no lower level products at that point. It was a Premiere, and that was about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I sit at a computer all day at work, and the last thing I want to do is come home and sit at a computer.
Yeah.
But I did for 6 months after hunting season. And then everybody would want it out by the Sportsman Show, which is impossible for me to do.
Yeah, it's like January.
Yeah, so I'd tell me, that's the goal, that's the goal. But usually it wouldn't be until like early summer or late spring that I could get one rolled out. Then I stopped committing to making one every year. And I got more realistic with it. I said, okay, well, that's just not going to happen. So,
but I mean, it was a huge influence on me. I remember watching you guys hunt one year, and it was cool because you guys were just kind of just real and just being yourselves, right? And I remember watching you guys out there with a wiffle ball bat, which you used to bugle with, and you're like hitting rocks into the bushes and dinking around and stuff. And every now and then you're bugling, and you're just kind of bugling and dinking around. And all of a sudden this bull just fires off at you, and you're all like, oh,
let's go get him.
Let's go get him. And then there you are, off to go get him.
Yep.
And you killed a great bull. And I look at that, and that since has happened to us as well, where we're just bugling and hanging out and bugling, and everything's dead. But, we're just throwing out calls and making noise. And one time we were teaching my cousin how to bugle, and he sounded awful. I mean, he just sounded awful. And he's cow calling, and we're bugling. He's practicing this bugle. And we practiced for about 45 minutes. And all of us are just, we're not trying to mimic elk. And we're just, no, that's not how it sounds. It sounds like this. Now try this. Try this sound first. And so we're making bizarre noises, right? But this goes on for like 45 minutes. And then all of a sudden, this bull is just, I guess it just couldn't take it anymore.
Enough is enough.
And he just screamed on top of this mountain and just came charging down. And we shot him. And that was sort of like, was kind of an eye-opener, because here we are trying to do this perfect rendition of what elk sound like, and imitate the sounds of a cow and then the bulls and blah 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 and all this stuff, right? And here we are just dinking around with a bugle tube and making all kinds of weird sounds, and this bull just comes in hotter than any bull we've really called in since then. And shot him.
You might have thought he was missing the party down there.
I mean, obviously he did, but it was like,
where are my boys at? And then he just down the hill to his demise.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. How many guys do you know that have pet a spike elk on the side of a road, a wild spike elk? Did you see that on the video?
No. When was that? Was that recent?
That was in 2000, and I was on the 2005 video.
Yeah.
I believe.
Was it?
Yeah, that was way back.
Maybe I did see it.
Yeah, he's just laying in the ditch, just cooling off.
And he just let you walk up to him?
Brad and myself walked right up there.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know the story behind it. I heard rumor that it was somebody's pet, and then they relocated it, and then we just happened to stumble across it, which could very well have been the case. But, we played with him for a little while. He got up and walked away on his own.
Grabbed his antlers.
And we probably killed him as a 4-point the next year. After he left, it's all fair game again.
Right.
Gave him his one chance.
That's funny.
Go get big, buddy.
That's funny. So keep going with your story. So you get your first film out and stuff. How did that go?
It was tough. It really was tough getting people to buy into wanting to sell it. So the whole sales part of it is really the toughest, to get it in stores. And then you have to really, you put yourself out there when you make something like that.
Yeah.
So you have to swallow your pride a lot when people are ripping on it or talking it up,
or that you shouldn't have taken that shot.
Yeah,
It's always an armchair quarterback.
Who does that? You know. So very interesting.
But your room is full here of some very, incredible elk. In fact, what is this? The number 6 Roosevelt in?
No, that's a Rocky Mountain.
Oh, Rocky Mountain. Number 6, though?
Number 6, non-typical with a bow, yeah.
What unit was?
That's Dayton.
Dayton. Number 6, non-typical with a bow. That's an incredible bull. So I want to know what you do, okay? You know, what is it that you do that helps you kill these Roosevelts? And I've been watching you for years, and you're pretty much calling all these bulls in.
Yep.
There's not a lot that I've seen of spot and stock. It's calling, and I've seen like you missed this bull over here, which is just an awesome bull. You miss him. I mean, it's like he like turned and came right at you or something, but the shot goes off. You miss. He runs off, and then you give him some time, and then you go back in later and you call him in and kill him.
Yep.
And like this number 6 bull here, same thing.
Took me 4 hours.
4 hours, and he'd come in and he'd leave, and come in and leave, and so what is it, Shannon? Like how did is it the cow calls?
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Can I preface this with something too?
Yeah, man.
Nothing we hunt is private land. We're not
all public land.
It's all public land.
It's all open to public land.
State forest, national forest. It's all over the counter tags.
Yep.
One limited draw. That's the only one.
Yeah.
So,
jeez.
I think what I really do different than most people is I play on that right or will to breed that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So I am the threat to their right to breed. So, which is why I've learned to target the mature animals, the herd bulls, and why satellites are hard for us to really kill. And cows and calves, they really just get in our way. So I would rather not. And every now and then I'll use a cow call to complement my bugle or whatnot. And if I discover a bull is following his cows real heavy and I can't pull him away, I may resort to the cow call. But 90% of the time, it is a reaction to my bugle that gets him to come in to defend his territory and his right to breed. So that's how I look at every situation and every bull that we target. I don't bugle a ton. It's just enough to keep him reacting to me. And then when you're close enough, he decides that it's time to protect his harem.
So what's a calling? What does a sequence look like then?
A sequence, well, our sequences, and we don't really do the setups like a lot of people do. Oh, set this guy up there, here. It's more dynamic than that, and it really has to do with the terrain.
Yeah.
And, I don't like to hunt early in the morning, and a lot of people say, oh, you got to get up at the crack of dawn. I don't like to hunt these bulls until they're in their bedding location. They're in their home. They're in their living room. So then when I find them, they're not going nowhere. Those cows are usually bedded down. They're where they're going to be for the rest of the day. And then I push in. I just straight in like if someone was coming into your house. And then you got no choice but to defend what you have in order if you're going to keep it. So that's what I do with these mature bulls.
So do you call on your way in then?
Absolutely. And
because I've heard, I've talked to Phelps and other people and Corey Jacobson, and a lot of them are like, they don't want to call their way in because then the bull gets aware and they leave. And I suppose that's not necessarily the case when they're bedded down in the afternoon in their living room.
You're not going to push the bull early in the morning.
He's not going to leave. He's just going to hear you keep building anxiety as you come closer and closer.
And so breaking brush and I like to really go straight at the animals if assuming the wind is beneficial to do that. And in our coast range here, the wind usually swirls. There is no one solid direction unless you get some storm blowing in or something. Then you can actually predict it. But usually I go as straight as I possibly can to the animal, and I'm not trying to be quiet. I'm not necessarily trying to make noise, but in this country, you're not going to take a step without making some noise in September. So we just walk right, at a pretty at a good
kind of what a bull does. They walk straight.
They're on a string.
Straight on. That's right. Yeah. So
have you found that makes a difference than if you go around and you're making noise? Or?
I have found that if I locate a bull and I realize that I can get around and get closer to him, and I go in and I come from behind him and I try to get him to get fired back up, now he's got two bulls. I think what happens is he thinks there's a bull there. Now there's a bull behind me. Now he gets a little concerned. If I get his attention, if I get his reaction in the very beginning and I can keep it, And I think it aids in our success by doing so. So the walking straight at him is part of the call. Mm-hmm. So in it building, just like you said, it builds his anxiety. And now he's breaking a tree. I can hear him down there raking a tree. He'll come back. He'll go to his cows and he'll make sure they're all there. And then he'll swing around. He'll try to cut us off before we get down in there. So setting up for us is more, if we can get to that distance that the sight curtain allows us to do the setup, we'll try to do that. But I'd say most of the time, and a good example is this last year's bull. Yeah. We charged right down in on him, and before we could even get set up, he's coming in. He's coming right to us. And he's going to where he last heard us.
And what do you mean when you say you try to keep your calling to a minimum?
Yeah, so I just want him to react. And if you continue calling, well, he just kind of gets callous to it. Now you're just a background noise instead of something he really has to pay attention to. So, there's times we get a little out of control with calling and do more than you probably need to.
Okay.
But as soon as you get him reacting to you and you barge in, you hit him hard again, you're playing off that reaction.
So do you like to cut him off when he bugles?
Well, usually he's answering me. And then as soon as he answers, I'm moving in. I'm getting closer, getting where I think I need to be. Yeah, and if I'm not afraid to cut him off, I don't necessarily think that's they get offended by it. I don't think that's really the case.
And so as you walk in, then you're just bugling it as you go, and he bugles back to you, and you follow him. And then after a while.
Well, ideally, hunting later in the afternoon, I don't have to follow him. He's already where he's going to be. Yeah.
I mean, you target him. You go after him.
I get straight in, and I don't know what it looks like where he is, so I'm learning as I'm going in.
Right.
And I'm making noise, and he's probably going to meet me at least a quarter of the way or so. I'll have to go about 90% or 75% to him, and then he'll meet me before I ever see his cows.
I was going to say one of the benefits too about where we hunt in the Coast Range is the density of the forest too.
Right.
Corey Jacobs was talking about he's getting questions from people saying, "What do I do when a bull hangs up at 80 yards?" These things can't see 80 yards.
No.
We don't have to worry about that. We don't want them to see us, and we don't want to see them until it's kill time. When we're at full draw when they finally walk into our sight path. And so that's a difference.
It's both a benefit and a curse.
A little bit,
can be.
The thing is, I think for calling, it's a benefit.
Yeah, sure.
I've been on the east side so much where I'm trying to find some cover so that that bull will come all the way into shooting range. Mm-hmm. And there's like nothing. And it's like all he has to do is kind of skirt from 80 yards and take a peek. Yeah. It's like I need something where if he sees where I'm at, he still can't
He still has to go look.
Yeah, he still has to go look.
He has to investigate.
Yeah, whereas on the coast, it's like...
he's going to be 4 yards from
And if they're talking, you can just afford to make all that noise, too, and go right in at him.
Yeah.
So how do you close the deal?
Well, ideally, you get to that distance, say 100 yards, and he comes to you that last, 75 or whatever you need to get the shot. He
96.
brings himself to the shot.
Because you mentioned that. You mentioned, having him come in, leave, come in, leave, come in. When do you decide you're not going to go any further?
As soon as the terrain doesn't allow me to.
Okay.
If I can get closer, I'm going to get closer. If I have to cross a big open or there's a big draw between us or just some geographical reason why I can't get there, then I'll say that's about it. I've had bulls come in to a certain point and then go back to his cows, and that appears to be like that max distance they're going to come in. I'll try to get on beyond that. But I'd say in this country, most of the time when we push in on them, we're well within that distance. We get well within it. And if he's a dominant herd bull, which is what we are targeting, he's going to come in. He's won every fight to that point. He's the dominant guy. He's already, in his mind, he's the one that should be breeding the cows. So he's not afraid of the elk that we are portraying. So he just comes barging in. And you can see it in their eyes when they're looking for another elk and they're looking right past a human, looking for a big bull. So this guy is the winner. He's the champion.
Yeah. So when you do this and you're targeting these bulls, you don't know if it's a raghorn that's calling back to you.
Usually not a raghorn. I don't know how big a
bull it is.
Bull. I mean, we can say, there's raghorns that are herd bulls.
Yeah.
In his mind, he's the biggest bull in the country.
And you don't use a single cow call.
Every now and then just to compliment my bugle, but that's not what kills the elk. There is one bull on film that I cow called a calf to me, but he was not the herd bull. He's just a satellite, and he came in following the calf. He was babysitting or something. And I
think I saw that one.
Yeah.
She came in. It was close, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 10 or 12 yards. Or it was under that. It was like feet, It was like 15 feet or 12 feet or something. It was really close. It was in reprod, so in order to get a shot in reprod.
That was thick.
Yeah.
Get close.
Yeah. Okay.
So that bull that on the wall right behind him is the one that he killed last year, and that was at 4 yards. And we had what we would call a setup, which was me 5 yards from him and the camera guy behind both of us. But we called our way into it, and then just found a nice bench in the terrain as we were coming down the hill, and it was within that distance. We were within 100 yards of him, but he couldn't see more than probably 20 or 30 yards the whole time. And if he wouldn't have spotted the cameraman, he would have literally walked right past Shannon and ran the camera guy over, and Shannon shot him at 4 yards.
Yeah.
And on a frontal shot, so that's another topic that you can get into if you want.
Well, that's what I was going to say next is like in the and I've seen the Born and Raised guys, a lot of their films, and on the coast where it's thick like this and you're calling and you're basically like, you're not doing this kind of Eastern style setup where you got a collar 30, 40 yards behind you while you're there. You're calling that bull right to you.
He's going to the other bugler, yeah.
So do you have a guy behind you bugle? Do you just bugle yourself?
I asked him if I could bugle for him last year, and he said he's got it. So that should tell you something.
In the beginning of us setting up and calling, and that's what we used to think. But anymore, I think you're better off being the caller and shooter, or in this country, to be in the same place. You got to remember the bull is going to what he's hearing.
Right.
And if your shooter is off, 100 yards or 60 or 50 yards away, now you have that distance to deal with.
Can mess up the setup.
Exactly. And we've had elk come in, around where that guy doesn't get a shot.
Yeah, lots of times.
So then what? Now he's sitting there looking at the collar. So I think in this country, with it as thick as it is, you're better off being like side by side. And that way, and I've killed lots of bulls just calling and shooting by myself. So and it allows you to be able to move to wherever you need to go to get a shot. If you are right there with each other. As a caller, you can see the angle as a shooter.
Yeah.
So in this thick country, it just seems
to get more
better.
open country, that caller in the back, since they can see that distance, they can steer that elk. And you saw that in the old Primos videos and stuff, and the caller would come in and say, I saw him coming in the wrong line, so I had to move, and then I made some more calls. You can't do that here. So if we got separated 30 or 40 yards, with our eyesight, we can't see him. The elk definitely can't see.
You're using your ears to keep track of him, not your eyes.
Yep.
There's cases where that does work. In the worm, we have a video where that bull's coming in on the ridge, right? And so I just, bark at him a little bit, and it totally changes his direction. He comes right in, right to Jeremy.
Yeah. So the front shot, is that a shot that Shannon takes?
Shannon has taken that shot and killed some elk with it. And the way I like to it's not a front shot; it's a 1/4-2, and it's no different than quarter in a way. And if you looked at an elk in 3D and just drew an X through the vitals and where you would shoot him broadside or quarter in a way, that 1/4-2 shot is the same shot. It's just a smaller window to get that arrow, in front of the front leg.
Most of these shots you're taking too are very close. You're not taking that shot at 80 yards.
Absolutely. That shot yards. Would not, at 20 yards, I probably wouldn't even take it.
Yeah.
So it's underneath 20. It's usually in this country here, if you can see, if it's in the timber, it's under 20 yards. So
I took a front shot last year. In fact, lost an elk. It wasn't going to die. It wasn't a vital impact, but at 10 yards, but I had to shoot through some ferns, and when it hit, the arrow came out 30 yards down the trail, and broadhead and everything was still on the arrow. he was going to live. I felt like it was a good shot, but the nice thing is that that's not a vital wound like some of the, even a broadside or quarter away shot might be. If you hit them in the wrong spot, they might not die for miles until you finally find, you never find them.
We got into that a few times now. Like, we just talked about this in that podcast with Corey Jacobson. Mm-hmm. If you do shoot a bull in the chest and you don't kill him, it's not a death sentence.
Right.
Most likely.
He might have a limp or something.
He's not going to bleed to death. In general, he'll survive. If he doesn't bleed to death, he'll survive. And whereas now when I'm taking a quarter and away shot, in my mind, if I hit him in the back end there, in the guts, it's a death sentence.
Yeah.
It's just, he's dead.
However long that takes.
However long it takes, but he's dead. So now I start to wonder on the ethics of, especially with a bull elk, where their stomach and their guts are so big. It's not like a whitetail or a blacktail where you're trying to, or even a mule deer where you're going through those guts and you're going to punch into the vital area. Sometimes they don't bleed well. So this often touted, quarter and away shot being, this great shot. I kind of rethink the ethics of it in a way. Like, okay, great. I'll probably hit right where I'm aiming. Could right, or I could hit right in the guts a little too far to the right or whatever, and it's dead.
Right.
It's just I may not find it.
Get it.
Whereas on that front shot, it's like I missed, darn it, but he's not dead.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting topic,
especially with the Roosevelt Elk hunting, because that's how we end up calling a lot of them in.
Yeah,
I mean, they come right to where we're standing, and that might be the best shot that you're going to get.
When you're talking solo hunting, to me, and solo calling, it's just, that's a natural, the bull's coming face on. He pops out into the tree, into the shooting lane, he's face on. Yeah. That's kind of hard to get away from that shot.
That's going to be your most common angle.
Most of the time, he's going to keep advancing at that angle. He's not going to just turn sideways all of a sudden.
Unless you're Jeremy, the worm, which they always see him turn and run and then stop and look back, and he whacks him.
Oh, that's awesome. So, what do you think then are common mistakes guys make when they're hunting Roosevelt elk?
I think people are too they're afraid to push in on them. They're afraid to fail, right? They're afraid to spook them. I think it's the way how aggressive we are and how we just barge right into them is what makes us successful. We're playing on that right to breed. We're playing on that right to hold your ground, which these Roosevelts being, excuse me, real homebodies, and they have this certain area that they've grown up in their entire life. They know every elk in this region. So when you go in there as a strange animal that they've never heard before, he's going to be more likely to stand his ground. Yeah. So we play on that. And it's no different than a man coming into your living room and yelling at you. You're probably going to meet him in the living room. You're less likely to run away. So
I think another thing too is that you get a lot of guys that they'll look at this terrain that we're hunting in, and one, they won't hunt there. But even though there are elk there and there are big bulls there, because they don't get hunted for years and years until we find that spot and then we go in and kill them. But they won't commit to going into these canyons. You're looking at 15 to 2,500 feet down into just to the bottom of Jurassic Park jungle, looking at it going, I don't even know if the ground is down there.
Yeah.
We were
and
talking
they're
about
not committed to dropping in. And you have to. If you hear a bull down there, you don't know what it looks like, so you have to commit to going into it. And when you get down there and you find out it's not the right bull that you want to shoot that day, then you have to get back out. And a lot of guys will do that once or twice, and they say, I'm not going to go after that one. He doesn't sound big enough. Well, you might not know. I mean, it might just be the biggest bull you're ever going to see bedded down there, just light calling at you.
Well, and getting an elk out of that kind of country is
dangerous.
Such a job.
Yeah. Not everybody can do it.
Mud, slicks, I was telling you guys coming out of I'm neck deep. It reminds me of Prince of Wales a little bit, or a lot. And you're climbing out of these canyons, in Oregon. And I remember just sliding down, climbing up 10 feet, sliding right back down to the bottom of just over and over trying to get out of this spot. The rain is pouring down. We got down there and the elk blew out and we had to climb out. And I've only hunted the coast a handful of times, but the terrain is definitely a major challenge.
We've figured it out. It averages a 3-to-1 rise over run. So for every 3 feet up, it's a foot out, right? So and you're talking forest that 100-year-old forest that the dirt is a foot deep and the sword ferns are to your shoulders, and you've got rhododendrons 30 feet tall. Like if you've never seen a 30-foot rhododendron, go drive down to the Oregon coast, spend a day driving around there taking pictures of them because they're horrible, and that's what that terrain's like. And I think that's a lot of what scares many of these guys away. Having
hunted all these Roosevelts, and I've seen Roosevelt and Rocky Mountain bulls. I've seen some giant-bodied Roosevelts. What is your experience between the two, hunting eastern side versus Roosevelt?
Well, I was always told that Roosevelts were a lot bigger than the east side bulls, or body-wise.
Yeah.
I don't know. That bull I killed right there, that one
but that's
on the ground is perhaps one of the biggest animals I've ever seen.
I was going to say, there's those Rocky Mountain bulls that get to be 10, 12, 14 years old, and I think they are giant.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've seen some
you have
like
to
that.
Look how big those antlers are. To carry that around, you got to be a big animal.
But I'd say that your 5-year, 6-year-old and younger bulls, on average, the Rosies just seem much bigger to me.
Yeah, there's probably not a bull up here that wasn't over 800 pounds on the ground.
I was going to say, like, when you're traveling through Jewel and you're looking at them in the on the refuge, I'm going, those things are like, I swear they're a foot taller, like a moose. Like they just seem longer legged. Yeah. Just big bodies.
Yeah, I think that terrain plays into it too. Well, and the amount of feed and genetics, obviously, but
yeah.
They're a big animal. They're hard to work if you're just 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
What's really neat about these bulls are their antlers. Like you've got some really cool, like chocolate, the dark chocolate with the white tips and stuff. Yeah. I mean, just some really neat antler formation as well. Like this is one of my favorite bulls here in the corner, and I saw that. I saw the film with that. He's got the crown on it, but he just has like this uniform kind of look. He's not super huge, but he just kind of has this like.
It's like he's got a crown on his head.
Yeah. It's like, sort of like
they're like flames.
Yeah, they are, and that's why I like blacktail too, because they're not the biggest. They have just some unique character, just. With a Roosevelt, it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. Some of these bulls, and that one in particular, there's alders all over this country, but he preferred to rub the fir trees. The cedars and firs that are real pitchy, and that's where they get that dark color.
I mean, you got a couple in here that are just black. He's black.
Yeah, he's black. And then the one next to him there, he's an alder. I mean, and he was in big timber, so he had plenty of opportunity to rub the smaller evergreens, but he chose to rub the alders. So it's always interesting, and it's part of the excitement of how we hunt, because we don't see the bulls before we call them in. Mm-hmm. So what is he going to look like? How big's this bull?
Yeah,
it's like unwrapping a Christmas present.
It totally like when I'm after blacktails, and I'm up on in the Cascades or something, or I get up, especially in some of the mountain areas where I hunt blacktails, and I'll get in a tree stand. It's not my backyard. I don't have game cameras up, right? So I don't kind of know what's already there. And it's really exciting to see what sort of crazy blacktail buck is going to come through with completely unique look. It's super neat.
Yeah, and they do vary too. The blacktail do. I mean, I've killed blacktail within a mile of each other that one of them looked more like a mule deer and the other one looked more like a blacktail.
Yeah.
And there's no rhyme or reason why they should be that way necessarily, but they just grow different.
Yeah, I have some that are just bizarre looking. That from the time they were born, I watched them kind of on game cameras and stuff the whole time, and could see the differences. And they're all in the same gene pool, yet completely different looking. So pretty neat.
Yeah, so that's pretty exciting. We find rubs, and that's a lot of how we hunt new area. Mm-hmm. We'll find a rub, and if I usually can't reach it, I'll start hunting that bull.
That's the marker when he can't reach it. Now I can reach them all, but he can't.
So
if I can't, then it's the game on.
What
sure.
you do don't matter.
Yeah.
So when you go hiking out there, you're just kind of, how does a guy find a place to hunt?
Well, if you're looking for a good elk place, I like lots of big timber. There's elk all over and in Jack Firs and clear cuts or whatnot, but I find that you're more likely to get a shot and to call in a bull when you're in this big, heavy timber.
Like old growth kind of stuff?
Well, yeah, as old as growth as it can be around here, you know. So, big, deep canyons where most people just don't go down into unless they have a good reason. I like to walk the ridge lines if it's like I do most of my scouting in deer season, like in the fall, late fall, because then I can still recognize fresh rubs and how big they are.
The season before.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
The year before. So you're out there hunting deer, and while you're out there in like October, November,
Yep.
then you get a feel for areas and rubs, and you're like, okay, there's some big elk in here. I'm going to come back next year.
That's right. That's exactly how we do. We usually hunt one or two places new a year as well, just to keep expanding, keep moving around. I've learned that if I hunt the same bull year after year after year, that he begins to recognize me, or even during that season, if I target a bull for multiple days, I'm no longer a threat to him. He's not reacting to me like he was the first day I was in there. So I find if we jump ship and move over somewhere else, target a totally different population of elk, I'll get that reaction again, and then we can try to be successful in there. And
so
then
you've been hunting an area for a week or two or a few days even, and you've been screaming and screaming and screaming. Once you've kind of missed that initial excitement that you caused from being completely new bull in the area, you find it's difficult after that to...
It gets more and more difficult, yeah. So by giving them a few days of rest and then looking for that initial reaction again, we like to jump around a little bit.
So, and when you're bugling, there's nothing special about it?
Oh, no.
I mean, you sound good.
I don't consider myself a expert bugler whatsoever. But, again, I'm trying to be as loud as I can. I'm trying to be as dominant as I can possibly be. I know there's no comparison to a real elk. My lungs are a fraction of the size of theirs.
Right.
But if I can get a reaction, and in my opinion, in this country, volume is the single biggest reason why you get an answer.
Yeah.
It's not because you can hit the highs and you can hit the lows and, I did a chuckle in the ground. No, it's a simple fact that you just got a reaction from that bull. So you'll hear me, I'll bark at them, I scream at them, I get their attention, and then I'll hit them with another bugle, while they're looking at me.
Yeah.
And I've actually watched it happen. Why I do two bugles to get an answer. And the reason why is I've watched bulls feeding along, and then I'll hit a bugle, and then they lift their head up, look around a little bit. Then you hit them again when they're looking, and then you get that reaction. So a lot of times, if you watch my videos, I'll do a pair of bugles to get a locate. So, and then as soon as they react, then boom, we're on them.
Okay.
And not a whole lot of hesitation. You can't sit there and think, what's the best way to get down there? It's just straight to them.
That's kind of how we've been for a number of years now. It's like once we find a bull, it's like, let's go. We're not waiting around. We're not planning.
Let's have lunch and then
right. Let's go. We're just kind of, okay, it's time. It's on. Yeah. And we all just kind of fall into our positions and go after it.
There can be some delays, though, because 3 years ago, the bull that I killed in Oregon, it was the bull, the easiest way to access it was to go down a walk-in or bicycle-in only road. Mm-hmm. So we actually went and drove 30 minutes back to camp, biked up, grabbed some food, and headed back, and then rode in. So from the time that we located that bull until the time I killed that bull, like 6 hours had lapsed. So by the time we dropped into the canyon, you're dealing with the wind swirling and then trying to pinpoint exactly where he's at from across the way. It took time, but that bull, as soon as we got down there, he did exactly the exact same things Shannon's been talking about. He came right to us on a string as we got into his kitchen.
So do you like to mimic what he does, or you just kind of play?
I wouldn't say I try to mimic anything. I would say they mimic me more than I mimic them.
Yeah.
I just scream at them, just like someone in your living room.
And that's one thing I noticed when I listened to you bugle and call and stuff. It was one of the first times I started to really change up my calling and make a lot of different sounds, especially hearing you do barks.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hear you bark at a bugle, which I would think is kind of alarmish, like, and then go right into a bugle all of a sudden. I'm like, those don't go together, do they? And then seeing you do it and seeing you like bark and then bugle and then kind of make some other off noises, like more barking, but not alarmish, but just sort
Moans
of aggressive.
Yeah.
And then bugle again. And it's like, it seemed to work well.
Yeah, well, I've witnessed it. So that's where I actually started doing it. And bulls would come in and they don't see you and, they bark at you and then they jump into the chuckle or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, that's not a bark to run away. That's a challenge. He's like,
Show me.
I'm here. Let's
Where
do
are you?
this. Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and I've discovered over the years that if I want a bull to stop, cow call, don't do it. No. It's a bark, and whoa, there you are.
That's what I found too.
Yeah, and then he'll stop and look at you.
I have messed up some opportunities where I've got a bull coming in and I'm going to do that old time like cow call, mew, and then I'm going to drill him as soon as he stops. I've found they've heard that sound a million times. They could give a crap. It doesn't matter if you're 8 feet away. He's just like, you're just.
He's not looking for that
no,
cow.
but when I'm like,
Didn't
"Moo!"
react.
and I bark kind of loud, or even if I cow call like real whiny or insistent, like, then he stops. Like it's just a jarring sound. It gets like, hey, whoa.
Yeah.
Then he stops. But if I just cow call like every day of the week is the same, it's just like he just keeps on walking.
Keeps on walking. Don't even listen to it.
And the same with bugling, though. I've been out there. I've been 100 yards from a bull, and I've screamed and bugled and done, and he just keeps eating grass. Doesn't even lift up his head. Just keeps eating grass. Just keeps eating grass. And I'm like, and I'm screaming, making all this noise, and finally, after a minute, he like looks over, and then he goes back to eating grass, and it's like, okay, what's going on here? And that's where I stopped being afraid of bugling. Because I used to be like, I don't want to be too aggressive. I don't want to. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I found like that doesn't do me any good. They just ignore it.
Yeah, bugling's like men shouting. There's no finesse in shouting at each other.
Yeah, this is a fight. It's on.
Exactly.
You don't yell better than the other guy.
So and I think putting a lot of emotion behind your bugle, they can actually hear that emotion. So, and you can definitely hear it.
I agree.
When a bull means it. And when he's just kind of, I'm over here.
I agree.
Yeah.
When I get pissed off and I'm trying to sound pissed off, it comes through in the bugle.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's the inflection in your voice.
Yeah, and I think that emotion plays more to it than the super technical bugle he hit all the notes perfectly. Yeah. Sounds exactly like a bull.
You're going to get a 10.
Da, da, da. Yeah, totally. You're going to get a 10. You're going to win that championship. And yet they don't respond.
Yeah.
And then you don't even think about that, and you just get pissed off in the bugle, and it's a different response.
If you've been driving around calling into canyons for a day or 2 days or whatever at a time, if you want to find out if you're bugling the way that you should, your abs are going to tell you because you're going to hurt, right?
Yeah.
You're going to hurt from calling that much. It's just consistently stopping and calling into all these canyons. The effort that you put into it will tell you if you're doing a good job. If you're not, it's just...
One thing that I would say is that I struggle with, and I've seen a lot of guys that seem to call in a lot of elk they just can make some volume on that bugle. Anthony, myself, my hunting partners, Ben, we don't. The three of us don't particularly get the volume. Like Phelps can make some noise, How do you get that volume? I mean. You've hunted with guys, I'm sure, that just give it all they've got, and they still don't have the volume.
Brad's not real loud.
No. And
I think it sounds good.
I think you have to find the right reed.
Yeah.
One that allows you to open your mouth and do your calls. Because a lot of people are like real tight-lipped. Try to make the right sound. If you have the right diaphragm that fits your mouth, you'll be able just to scream everything you have.
Yeah.
So and then of course the tube. Right, you have to have a firm tube, one that that doesn't absorb.
I was going to say for years you were using the
a really hard plastic wiffle ball bat, so that it's not porous like a lot of the softer, flexible plastics. It doesn't absorb the sound. It deflects
pushes it out.
Just pushes it right out. It rolls right off it.
So what do you like to use today?
Well, I've been using Glenn's. Glenn and I have a good relationship, so I've been using his Golden Tone, which has that same ability to be loud. But when I need volume, I go right back to the wiffle ball bat, which is pretty much what the Rocky Jacobson and the Phelps call. They're all form of a wiffle ball bat, right? They're all that hard,
and they're big.
Firm.
Yeah, we've had this conversation too where Phelps gets these questions from buddies saying, "Hey, I really want a packable one. I really want a lot smaller tube. I really would like one that maybe you can like expand." And people are often saying, "You don't need a bugle tube like that. It's pretty ridiculous. That's an awful lot of tube to cart around." And Jason, being more of that sort of purist or that caring about the sound, he's like, it's kind of hard to mimic this sound with this whole pack bugle thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you need it, you need that.
Yeah.
When you're not hearing bull's bugle, you want the loudest tube you can possibly find.
So one of the things that we've done, and this is hunting, elk and in Idaho and Arizona and stuff like that. We're hunting these more arid climates, not on the coastline. But we want the sound to carry and get out there. And being that we don't make the loudest sound or the highest pitch, we've used that Primos Terminator bugle with the blue silicone reed. It totally sounds like some kind of flute or whatever. And yet but
they're loud.
The sound carries, so we will use that tube sometimes. We'll bugle with our own tubes, and try to make some and see. Well, we don't get a response. We're like, well, then we pull out that one and we'll do one, and sure enough, we'll like way out there. It's just that the sound didn't carry with the tube we had before, and this one it just carries.
Yeah.
And then when we get closer, we go back to kind of using our standard stuff.
And it might only be the one note out of that Terminator tube that's the high enough that it carries out that distance. Because when you start falling off, you're going to be soft enough at those distances, especially if you're hunting Rocky Mountain elk, that they're not going to hear that step down, or they're not going to hear the ramp up. They just hear the high pitch and they react to that. Yeah. But like with the Golden Dome that Shannon's talking about that Glen Berry has, it's great for being able to. It's super small and packable for a call like that. But then when we're stepping out of the rig and calling into canyons, it's something big. We use a modified. It's a cricket training bat, basically flat on one side, round on the other, which is actually a really nice setup because you can stuff it in things. It's not all round; it's flat on one side, so it'll actually stick into your pack against your back a lot better than the other ones.
It doesn't squirt out.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, because it's flat, bat. So it's not round. Yeah,
that's the benefit. You can pack it.
Yeah.
Do you modify those tubes at all?
I mean, we
should sell a Shannon Mobbs ASP cricket bat tube.
It's funny. We talked about this, and I was like, well, these things are like $4 a piece, and these guys work hard for their money. Just go buy one.
Yeah.
So, at no point did I ever want to get into the call making business. So, no. Yeah, we played with links and curving it on the end to get some sort of resonance, some sort of chamber going on.
Rubber.
Quite honestly, I mean, if there's a crack in it or something, you'll get this fuzz to it. But the loudest possible combination I can get, and that's usually an open end that allows me just to give it everything I got, is how I get.
Yeah.
And really, it's only that important to get that initial answer. Once I get the answer, I could switch to anything or nothing and probably still get it to work. But that initial answer, that first locate bugle, is the hardest one to get.
I watched you shoot that bull, back to that one, and you work up on it, and you keep working on it and working on it and working on it. And it seems like you're working on this bull for quite a long time. And then finally he steps out to the point where you can shoot him. But you are bugling. You got your hand, you got your release on your bow, your hand on your bow, your arrow's knocked, you're ready to draw at any moment. But you're bugling and doing all this stuff with this bull There's a little rain coming down. It seems like
cloudy,
foggy. Yeah, foggy. But you're bugling with no tube,
nothing.
Just right out, and so the volume and this sound's not quite the same.
Yeah.
Yet that bull is working. You're working that bull.
Yeah. So first called him in. He came just charging in, and being human, you always make mistakes. So I missed him.
I didn't know what happened there. It looked like you aimed for his antlers. And
honestly, what happened is he was already turned and running away. And I was like, oh, shoot. So, yeah. But knowing what elk do, and the cows had no idea what was going on. So they didn't all run.
He didn't know what happened.
He didn't know what happened. He saw movement and something happened there. It wasn't another elk. So he wouldn't come back to that same spot. But he was still answering periodically. So I knew
he's amped up.
Yeah, he wasn't going nowhere, and his cows were still down in there. So later on that evening, and this was an all-day thing. I didn't leave this bull, and this was a pretty big reprod area, and he went back down to the bottom. And then his cows came out about halfway down the hill, but he was still in the timber, and that was me right above him there, and just working him. And finally he stepped out in the open, and I got another shot on him. But I can't say that even if I didn't call, I can't tell you that it wouldn't have happened just like that, because he wanted to be more with his cows than to do what he did earlier, and that was come in to protect him, because that whole situation had him spooked. But I think by keeping track of where he was allowed me to get a shot on him, get that last shot on him.
Interesting.
Just don't give up.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, so he's not a little guy. He's a stud bull. So how many times have you just stuck with a bull all day like that?
Well, I stuck with a bull for 4 days like that, and just that's probably the longest it's taken me to actually call a bull in that I found, until it works or until it absolutely fails miserably. So I think as long as I'm not winded by the elk, that I always have a chance.
Game is still on.
Absolutely. They can even see me, or they can see movement. I just don't think they can't imagine that a human makes an elk sound.
Yeah.
So even if they see you, as long as you just chill for a while, you can start it all back up.
Yeah.
As soon as they wind you, though, they go from being this dominant animal in the woods to being, food.
Yeah.
To being prey. So all bets are off then. It's over. You might as well just, go find a different bull.
Yeah.
Probably for a few days, be honest with you.
Right.
If nothing else the next day. But definitely that day is shot.
Yeah. I was going to say,
part of the reason too, like when you've talked about on other podcasts, guys getting out of their trucks, slamming the doors, walking over the edge, bugling down into the canyon, and getting a response. Like those bulls don't associate our human sounds necessarily as an elk, but as soon as they hear that elk sound, like you could honk your horn and then turn right around and bugle, and you probably get a bull to answer you if he's down there and ready to die. That's just the brutal reality of it. They can't do anything but react.
That's mostly what we found too. Is the sound of the truck or whatever, a lot of that stuff.
They hear it
all the time. Yeah. They don't really care. And then in a four-wheeler or whatever drives by or, whatever. I used to get all uptight. Man, all these four-wheelers, they spooked all the elk out of here. And then as soon as a four-wheeler drives by, they start talking, screaming. And then as soon as the four-wheeler's approaching, they go quiet for a few minutes. And the four-wheeler drives by, and then they start screaming and all that. And they're right under their nose.
Yep.
And then that doesn't change if you're hunting Roosevelts or if you're hunting Cascade Roosevelts or even in the Blues. I mean, you got hikers out on a lot of these trails. I've hunted off the Pacific Crest Trail in Washington a lot. And I had my partner and I who were hunting up there were walking down the trail one day, and here comes this barking dog and these two ladies, and you guys see any elk up here? We're up checking our trail cameras. No, we haven't seen anything. We didn't walk 40 yards and looked off to our left, and there's a 4-point bull standing there feeding 50 yards off the trail. We're like, first of all, we were like, I didn't see any elk, sure, but here barking dog and two ladies walking past talking, and then we talked to them, and that bull he just stood over there and fed the whole time we walked right by.
I think a lot of times they know when a human is a predator and when a human is a tourist.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like we've killed a number of blacktails where...
Blacktail for sure, no.
Yeah.
They can see it in your eyes.
You start walking, you pretend like, I'm just on a nature hike, and they just let you walk right up to them and shoot them. But if you start if you're sneaking, you're like there, you freeze, and then you're like, they know, they can sense what a predator is, and versus just a guy on a hike.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, they've adapted to us as humans. I mean, we are a major predator to them.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I think during the fall for blacktail, they become a different animal because they know they've been hunted historically.
Yeah.
So it's ingrained in them. Yeah. So it's almost instinct now because it's been happening for so long.
So how does a guy like, you talk about finding them in their bedding area. That's easier said than done, though. How do you do that?
Well, I mean, Roosevelt's being pretty homely or homebodied. They're usually not going to bed too far from where you find rubs or you have a certain feeding area or something. I think you really have to study, and it's something that I find very satisfying when I'm elk hunting. If I can find a new bull and I can learn his terrain, I can learn his territory, and then I can almost strategically, figure out where he's going to bed. And they don't bed in the same place every day. But if I can figure this out, it's very satisfying to be able to do it like kind of a military operation,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's a bull, and here's where I found his rub. So I know he goes this way. I know he goes over here. So, here's a bench over here. You can look on the GPS or Google Earth or whatnot and really study the area. And, he's probably bedding in here, or he might be bedding in here. So let's get to where we can to be the loudest we can possibly be to that location. And you'll find them. You'll get them like that, and then you can push in on them. And that's how we pretty much take care of business. Is we'll find a bull, be it by rubs or usually by rubs. I'd say 95% of the time, it's a rub. Very rarely do we just get an answer without a reason to call. So we'll find rubs. We'll find a high point or some sort of good position to locate from, and we'll hammer a canyon, and then we'll figure them out. It won't take too long.
Yeah.
And we'll stay in the same spot for 15 or 20 minutes calling until you exhausted that they're just not in that area, and then you just move on. Then it becomes a numbers game, and we've talked about that a lot. It's just how many times can you call into different areas, and eventually you're going to find a bull. Then eventually you're going to find the right bull, and then it might take 4 days to finally figure out what you erase all of his advantages to the point where he can't do anything but react to you, and then that's when you actually go in and kill him.
Yeah.
Especially the big mature Roosevelts. I mean, the little ones, you could probably kill a little one every year and within a couple of days if you needed to. But if you're looking for a specific animal, you take your time to do it. Yeah. I'm assuming you're talking steering wheel.
Steering wheel, yeah. I mean, it's a great example. I mean, we found steering wheel located him while he was out feeding. So then it's hard to get in position when they're in the open. A lot of times they're not as confident as they would be in their bedding area. So. And in particular, when I first found him, it was in the evening, so he didn't have all that much daylight.
We found him with those first rubs next to a tree that literally had a steering wheel hanging from it. So that's where I gave him the name steering wheel. Yeah. So we were like, what do you call him? A steering wheel. Okay, good.
Yeah, well, we started calling because of the rubs and whatnot. But when I got an answer, he was actually in his feeding area. So it took us several days to figure out where he was bedding, or at least where he was bedded on that particular day. But as soon as we realized he was on this bench, we approached it from a different angle. We knew he was in there, and in the middle of the day when the cows are all bedded down, it's a lot of work for him to get him up and move him out. Yeah. So he really had no choice but to come in to keep us from getting to his cows. And it, by all means, would have killed the bull if we would have closed the deal on it, which is a whole nother podcast.
Yeah. Tree branches sometimes get in the way.
Tree branches, just training or practicing and just being intimate with your equipment is a whole nother show by itself.
Yeah. So that's cool. I was going to say earlier when we were talking about calling without a bugle. Last year I was hunting and got on some elk, and they were staring right at me, and I was in big open country. It's all like flat land, or not flat, but just there's no cover. It's all grasslands and canyons, and they were staring right at me. The jig was up, right? They're looking right at me, but the wind is hard in my face, and I am screaming like a bull. And that bull just stared at me and screamed back, and I just kept walking closer, and I put my bugle on my head and waved it around kind of like a horn, and I put my bow up, and I just came down the hill, and I was screaming at it. And after a while, I had to get my finger on the release, so I dropped the tube on the ground and was just bugling at him and walking, and he kept screaming at me, and his cows were all confused. They were scattering, and he was running off with his cows and stopping and coming back. And as I closed the distance, we just kept doing this whole tango thing down this hill for about 100 yards until I got to within about 60 yards. And then I drew, and I, but I just missed.
Yeah. But it worked.
I was breathing hard, and I couldn't. I'm telling you, it's the bugling. You're trying to breathe, and there's the rush from the excitement, but you're bugling, and it's like trying to talk while you're running really fast. It's like you need oxygen. And so every time he went to run, I'd have to bugle, but then I needed to breathe, but it was like I was constantly screaming. But yeah, he let me walk right up to him and close the distance, looking at a human, and yet still standing to fight. It's like...
Yeah, they question their eyesight.
I think so.
I mean, the one that you ended up killing the year before, it's the banner on my Facebook. That bull was, he was here to the wall. What is that? 3 or 4 yards.
Yeah.
And he's just sitting there staring at Brad, myself, and Dan. There's three guys standing there.
One guy with a camera.
We weren't hunkered up behind ferns or anything. We're just standing. And he's looking at us, and I don't know what's going on. The only time that elk feared for his life was when he finally winded us.
Yeah.
And then, boom, he's gone.
Yeah.
So, you can get away with a lot visually.
Yeah.
But you cannot trick their nose.
Yeah.
So if the wind isn't right, a lot of times I will just not hunt that particular animal on that particular day.
Yeah.
It'll come back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And how does the wind, you just find them in a different spot? Do you, because you're talking canyons that are steep and deep, and how do you know when you get down there the wind's not doing something different?
It most likely is. It most likely is. So in the Coast Range, we don't have a real, a prevailing wind. Yeah, we don't have thermals either. Just the difference from
got
bottom
fog and
to
rain.
Exactly. The temperature down in the bottom is the same as the temperature on the top, so it's not really an issue, and you're not waiting for the thermals to rise or anything.
Yeah.
No, you're just hoping that the wind is blowing the same direction there as it is where you're standing. Odds are it's not.
Yeah.
But you're just hoping that. Sometimes the wind will be blowing right at them, and you still get a shot on them. Well, it had to move. Wind just changed direction. So,
what would you say? If you're giving a guy some pointers on hunting Roosevelt elk, what are your top 3 keys to success?
You can't be too aggressive. So you can't be too aggressive to kill a mature Roosevelt. He's not going to run away because he's afraid you're a bigger bull. Now, if you're hunting cows, calves, and spikes and dinks, yeah, be finicky like that, or But if you want to kill a true trophy Roosevelt and one that, in his mind, is big, you can't be too aggressive. You can't break enough branches. You can't bugle loud enough.
Okay.
Yeah, he thinks he's the cock of the block, right?
Mm.
He's the tough kid on the street, so you're not going to intimidate him unless you're as aggressive as he is.
Okay. Can't be too aggressive.
Can't be too aggressive, number one. Number two, you have to get away from the clear cuts. So these elk are vulnerable when they're in the open. And I personally, if I see a bull, I won't call at him, because odds are he's feeling vulnerable and he's going to run away when you make a call. They're already scared just from being out in the open. That's where they get shot all the time. That's where they get shot at all the time. So
that's where they get seen. That's where they're skittish.
And then that bull don't like being out there anyway. He only followed his girls to the dance club. He really don't want to be there.
Right.
So, like most guys, don't want to be at the club.
That's right. So a lot of times, if I do see a herd or a bull in a clear cut, and then not in every case it's not going to be the same, but I'll wait for them to wander off and finally be where he is more confident, more comfortable.
Okay.
So number 1 or number 2, I guess, would be to stay away from the popular places, which is a clear cuts. And
Yeah.
you want a bull that just thinks he's the only bull in the canyon. And they have big.
Well, and
timber
I've seen their behavior completely different when they're in thick cover.
Mm-hmm.
Just bolder, more confident, more at home, more relaxed, more ready to charge in.
Yep, that's what you're looking for.
Now remember too, Brian, that we're talking targeting and measuring your success on mature bulls, right?
Yep.
So there's a lot of guys, they might hunt a clear cut because they're perfectly fine killing a 3-point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They don't want it to get any bigger for
or
whatever
a cow,
reason.
or a calf. That's one reason why I don't cow call a lot, because the cows, calves, and the little guys are going to be curious and they're going to come in to see that. And the big bulls, they already have their cows; they could care less.
What do you find is, as for time of season? Well, before we do that, let's finish this.
Yeah.
What's the third thing that is like a key to success?
You're looking for activity. You're looking for rut activity. So you're looking for things that tell you their elk are there during the time of year that you want to be hunting them, which is September. So for Roosevelt, the single most important thing that I can find in the woods is a rub. A rub. That tells me that bull is there in September. It's a bull, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, he's there in September.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the size or
aggressiveness.
Aggressive the rub is, it takes an alder tree down to a nub, he's probably a mature bull. And if it's a big alder tree or a big alder tree or whatever it may be, you can almost tell how tall this bull is, so if I can't reach it, he's probably 35, maybe 40 inches tall, which is a monster Roosevelt.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really, when I go to new country, that's the only thing I'm looking for. I'm not looking for elk trails. I don't care if there were elk there for 50 years. I want to know there's a bull there now. So
Okay.
I'm looking for the
number
rubs.
one indicator. It's a highlighter in the woods. A rub is.
Yeah.
Oh wait, you're actually. This is a podcast, so no, don't look for rubs. Look for deep elk trails. They were there 50 years ago.
Hunt clear cuts.
So if you've got this, 4-week season, September 1 to September 30, let's say, how are you treating the first week of the season versus the middle and versus the end?
Well, I used to think that they're less, and they probably are, less vocal early. But I'm still looking and doing the exact same thing I do throughout the season.
Strategy doesn't change.
It does not change, no.
Might be a little more exploratory at the beginning because we're trying to find where those elk are.
Yeah, and you don't
around.
have as much to go on, right? So late in August, early in September, there's not as many rubs, or there's not as many bulls that are hot that there will be later on. So you may have to give it a little bit more time if you're locating. But my strategy doesn't really change. I know later September gets, and it may be more so you get a little bit more desperate as you're trying to cover more ground and find a hot bull. Because really, if you want a bull to come running in, he's got to be already hot, and he has to have a bad night before or a really good night, whatever worked out.
Totally.
But he's on fire today. So
today he's he wants to, like Cory Japeson. I think he's like, it's a bull who wants to die that day. You know, you're trying to find one that's in that mood.
Exactly.
He's willing to die for what he stands for, right?
Yeah.
Which is defending his cows.
Yeah.
The right to
That's
breed.
the one you're looking for.
We would all fight for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eventually.
Yeah.
To a point.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Cool.
One other thing, too, that I was thinking about is that I think earlier what you talked about, some guys mess up on that. I think with Roosevelt's is really important is if you hear a bull moving his cows away, it doesn't mean he's going to leave. So rather than giving up, you see, I've hunted with several guys that, he's gone, and they'll pull out. That bull might just be pushing cows because he just doesn't want them where they're at. Like if you catch them earlier in the morning when they're still actively feeding and they're not in their bedding area, then he might move his cows off and then turn around and come back for that challenge. And you'll see that.
Which is a big reason why I don't hunt them really early. From learning this, locating them near or in their feeding area, and getting on them, and they're slowly moving away. And I'm thinking, he's pushing his cows. Well, to a point, but he gets them to where he was probably going to go anyway.
Right.
And then the cows don't want to go any farther, and they could care less if this bull is with them or that bull is with them. So they're done. They're going to bed down. They're going to chew their cud. They're going to do what cows do, and that bull's going to have no choice but to come in. So I don't really hunt them until about 8 o'clock in the morning. 8,
Yeah,
9.
Which is pretty nice.
Which is kind of how
get up early.
we've done it too. Only a lot of times on the east side, we're trying to find them, and you can find them in the morning, and you can actually glass them. And
They're
watch
really
them.
vocal too in the early morning like that
and
on their own.
You can watch them go to where they're bedded, and you can find that spot, and then you can sneak in there around noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and we've been saying that on the podcast for about a year, that one of the best times to hunt them and where we've had the most success is right in the middle of the afternoon when most guys are going back to camp.
I have killed the majority of my elk between 11 and 2.
Yeah.
It's right smack in the middle of the day. Most people are taking a nap or eating lunch or whatever they're doing, but yeah, I hunt all day long.
Yeah.
Except for the morning, and I sleep in.
Yeah. And it's nice too because that time of the year, the days are still pretty long.
They're long, yeah, dude.
So if you don't get back to camp until after dark, by the time you whip up a mountain house or whatever you're cooking, throw together your Heather's Choice or something, and then sleep. You sit around and BS, talk about what happened during the day, and usually that's our intel time. What did you guys find over here? Because we like to separate and cover multiple areas. Yeah. It's not 6 guys hunting in one spot. We'll try to get out and cover more ground. And you tell your stories. This is what we found. All right, cool. What are we doing tomorrow? Go to bed. That can be a real short night if you're getting up at 4:30, 5 o'clock to be out before daylight.
It adds up too, day after day after day. And you're getting up super early and you're up all day until late at night over and over again.
Yeah. It's easy if you're a weekend warrior, but if you're out, like we are, 2 or 3 weeks at a time, because that's what it might take for everybody to kill a bull, then it really starts to wear on you.
Yeah.
When you're going for filming, okay, so you've had a lot of experience in filming and you got a lot of kill shots.
We know how not to do it.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Instructional
You've
DVD
had
on what
success,
not to
man.
do.
I mean, kudos to you guys. I mean, it's not easy getting film a hunt.
No, this country is it's not made for the film and videos. I would like to say that that's our priority, but that's not at all our priority. Number one, our filming is we're just filming ourselves hunting. We're not trying to make a hunting video
story.
Yeah, so I'm not, most of the time I'm not going to ask these guys to not.
You're not. Your film isn't about the purpose of hunting and how it restores your soul and stuff. It's not.
You get that butterfly flying through the meadow.
He talks a lot of touchy-feely stuff on film. Yeah, tons.
It's pretty much. We went here and then we killed this bull.
Yeah,
it's pretty straight up raw hunting.
I located this beagle 2 hours ago, and I killed him 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, Shannon's voiceover isn't the.
No.
And what's funny, too, is that you'll be sitting there with your, well, we killed this bull, and it's a beast, right? And you're like, show some excitement, right? And Shannon's like,
we're out.
Killed this bull. We got to get him out of here.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. It's over. It's
that's because we got a long ways to go.
Yeah, that's why it's good. When Shannon's got some buddies there that can dance around and do the moonwalk.
Get some excitement.
Yeah.
Well, when you've been doing it as long as he has too, I mean that's 21 years, 20 plus years of killing elk with a bow.
I've talked to Aaron
Roosevelt's
Snyder about this quite a bit, though. I think some people just aren't as emotional.
Well, I internalize the excitement. I think I just don't. I'm not as animated as a lot of people are. But I am.
Don't confuse that.
I got a high five out of him last year.
I am shaking when this bull hits the ground.
Yeah.
If you could measure my heart rate and my level of anxiety, I guarantee you, I'm every bit as excited as everybody else.
Yeah.
I just don't animate it as well.
It's
some other people.
You've had a couple of guys on that were wrestlers, right? Shannon was a competitive wrestler all through high school and even after, and I think that you learn at some point to harness that excitement inside, even after you just pinned a dude. Some guys will jump up and fist in the air and run around the mat, but other guys, it's respect to your competitor.
Yeah.
To not, you got to have showmanship too, right? And I think in hunting, a lot of times people don't like it when people have, they get that excitement like, oh, I just killed an animal to just kill an animal. It's when you pay respect to the animal that you just killed and what you did to do that, that's where the excitement really comes in.
I think it's pretty cool to see all the, just the years of video. And I know you guys have got a ton that we've never seen before.
Yeah, oh, yeah, lots.
And so I'd love to see, more of it online, more of it available, more of it.
That's what we're going to try to do.
Where can people find Angry Spike Productions right now if they want to follow you guys? What's your social media? Let's start there.
Yeah, so right now we have Angry Spike Productions Facebook page and Instagram account. They've just kind of really started adding some content. The Instagram's all very new. Shannon, not being a real big tech guy, didn't really want to take on that project, so I've kind of taken that over a little bit, and it's just evolving.
Yeah.
And there's such a history there, especially from Roosevelt Elk hunting, that I really want to try to get that out. Not just the things that have gone on in the past, but I guarantee that the success is not going to stop moving forward, right?
Yeah,
so we would like to have other people experience those hunts with us, and if they learn something, even from podcasts like this, that's a benefit too. Because I think as in many arenas, you find out that the more people that are involved, whether they're successful or not in hunting, it spawns other things from it. You're talking
Absolutely.
Conservation, you're talking money in the industry, you're talking support for all kinds of things. And Shannon has a lot of people from the past that have come on and wanted to be a part of ASP. Glenn Berry's a big supporter, and any time that we can throw his name out there to sell a call for him, it helps out, right? So in order to kind of keep doing those things, we need to evolve in the media market. We're not going to try to make movies or films to make $1 million. That's not the intention here. It's really about the experience and just sharing that with people. And it needs to come along from where we've been in the past, and hopefully we can take that there moving forward. And especially, helping people like the Gritty Bowman and other people in the community that are really passionate about bow hunting, like we are, about hunting elk, like we are.
Yeah,
it's only going to be a win in the outcome.
I really think that all ships rise together, so working together with all those guys that actually know what they're doing and get out and love hunting for what it is. There's so many threats to hunting in general in terms of public lands being lost and the Elliott State Forest and things like that, which is close to our home.
Absolutely
close to home for us. And I think just things like video, though, I think are powerful. Photography as well, but sharing those experiences that you've got. So there's no question that films like yours and Born and Raised Outdoors had a profound influence on me.
Sure.
And my hunting life, right? We've been watching your videos and laughing and reliving your hunts, like, oh, so cool, did you see that kind of stuff for so long. It shaped what we do and the films that we make and where we're headed. And I think it's more powerful than people realize. And so, circling back and having you guys come on the podcast is just really neat for me. And also having that opportunity to share with your message and what you guys are about to a broader audience, that follows me is really cool. So I'm excited to see what you guys come up with next, and hopefully people will follow you guys, get to know you a little more, be influenced, get out there and actually give Roosevelt's a second try, maybe.
Yeah.
It's always tough, Corey Jameson, I talked about this a while ago, where he said somebody's got on his case because they're like, quit telling everybody how to hunt. Quit telling everybody where the hunting spots are. Quit telling everybody, we don't need more hunters.
Well, I've seen I'd say the population has gotten a lot better at hunting than they were 10, 15 years ago. So 10 or 15 years ago, I didn't have any competition out there bugling. I didn't hear other people bugle. It just didn't happen.
Right, totally.
And now there's some really good buglers out there. There's some really good callers. There's guys utilizing the techniques that we have shown them or other groups have shown them. And there's some good hunters around. So
yeah, it has an influence.
I'm torn. I'm torn between now. I want to tell everybody how to do it because a lot of guys already know how.
Me too. And I can only hike so far before I'm far enough. There's some guys that are younger and faster and healthier than me or like fitter than me now. And it's like they're hiking deeper than I am. We hiked into an area last year actually a couple years ago, and there were more people. It was actually last year. There were more people in the backcountry where we were at than there were out on the road.
Yeah.
So we started hunting the road. There was nobody on it.
And
there were elk all over on the road. Back in the backcountry, it was like there's like 10 guys on the ridges and in backpack camps.
And you can't really walk away from people.
The gym is full of guys wearing camo.
Mm-hmm.
Train to hunt, fit to hunt, get in the hunt.
They're going back farther.
Lift, train, hunt, or whatever.
But I say find rubs, and I see rubs that are being painted. Guys are out there painting rubs, and these guys are going to know who they are. I'm looking for your paint. You better get better at painting.
That's a good. Tell them the pea story. That's if you want a good story. You got to tell them that one.
I'm not telling them. No.
Faked a rub and scraped a tree, pissed all over it. Multiple guys.
That could burn him in.
And then, well, you know what? Those guys came and cut that rub down using their hands all over that pissed on tree.
It wasn't me. I didn't do it.
See, that's the thing, though. It's a valid point. Like hunters, we have this thing where we work really hard to find an area, get in an area, and
learn it too.
It's public land.
Yeah.
Learn it, and we're possessive over that area.
Sure.
And then we work hard to learn this knowledge, and then some yahoo like Gritty Bowman goes out and shares it with the world.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And so, I'm torn, but at the same time, I think America is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And the animals and the populations and all of that, and I feel like the 50 years ago, the idea of making sure there's habitat for deer and elk and all that was in the forefront of people's minds. And now they all say it, but no one actually, except for the hunting community, still cares, really.
Right.
Is willing to make the sacrifices needed.
Yeah, and growing our population is the only way to combat it. So.
I think that's it. I think that this is my thoughts on this. I really don't. I think unless you go out and you hunt and you're killing animals and you're bringing them home to eat them, you lose touch with. You don't care about the animals as much. It sounds ironic that you're out there killing them, but the very act of doing that makes you appreciate them more than those who don't participate, don't go out and do that. I think I've seen this correlation. I mean, look at who puts money into the animals and who doesn't.
That's right.
It's the ones who hunt them.
Yep.
So growing that population, I think, is critical in order to not just ensure the future of hunting, but that hunting itself ensures the future of conservation.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and that's why I always, hashtag our, you hunt for sport, but we kill for food. Like, and that the intimacy of that killing for food is what brings us closer to what goes on out in the woods. Otherwise it's you're going to the grocery store and killing there, right? It's just a different way of killing it, but you have zero intimacy to that grocery store. Where when you kill it out in the woods, it changes the dynamics of everything.
And as I've progressed as a hunter, and I get so excited about somebody killing their first elk for the first time. It used to be like I was always the most unselfish one in our hunting group. Just going to say it.
I can read it on your face.
You know how guys get, it's like, it's my turn to shoot. No, it's my turn. You shot it's this. And, where you're shooting elk out from under one another. So it was like all about who's shooting, right? Versus down the road where I'm gladly deferring. Like, no, you haven't shot a bull. I've done this before. I would love to see you do it. That sort of growth occurred later, after I'd done it a few times and after I'd been out in the wild, experienced this. But I think that has a big impact on. I mean, it's extremely rewarding for me to see that with someone else now in a way that it wasn't before. And I think you see that evolution with a lot of hunters as they get older. They'd rather see their kid shoot one than to shoot it themselves.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, there's a few things too. touching on what you said earlier, that you won't see from watching most of our videos is that we're not going to pass up a shot just to try to get it on film. So I mean, these are raw hunts, right? We're filming the hunt. We're not trying to make a hunting film.
It's not camera first. It's success first.
And sometimes that doesn't make for the best video, and we probably got tons of footage that would be great if the cameraman would have been there, or the camera would have been on, or whatever.
Microphone was on.
A lot of that stuff, and so it's real. So when people do watch the things that we put together in the past that we're going to put together moving forward, expect
Same
that
is
it's
true
not
for
going
us.
to be.
And you know what I think? That's just people can just expect that with certain groups.
And we don't do like after shot fill footage.
Yep.
I don't draw my bows.
You don't do a recreate of you drawing the bow and then like
run up and set the camera down, looking back, and then walk.
This is live as it happens. That's what it says on the back.
Live action.
Too.
We're the same way. I can't do a recreate, and it ruins it for me when I'm watching a film and the guy's got the cameraman over the shoulder. There's only two of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's the cameraman and him, and all of a sudden there's an angle from the front as he's pulling his bow and it's about 20 yards in front of him, about where the elk was.
Yeah.
And he's stepping over a log, and and it's like that didn't happen in the moment, dude.
You didn't just walk in front of him and film that.
Yeah. Especially when the elk is right there in the frame with the cameraman behind the head again. It's like, wait a minute, this is not jiving.
And now all of a sudden the camera's on the other side looking back over the bull as he's walking up to it for the very first time.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a classic that I'm glad is faded away mostly.
It has. Yeah, I think
most people aren't there, but
it's kind of corny.
I think that's important to know.
And what you said earlier too about Cory Jacobson saying being questioned about giving out all this information. The reality of it is you still have to get out there and do it, right?
Yeah.
You're still going to have to beat us at our own game. We can teach you how to shoot a basketball, but that doesn't mean you're going to beat me at 101. It's like you still have to get out and do it.
That's what Cory said too. And all the comments, people chimed in, sent emails, and left comments on YouTube and Facebook and stuff. And they're like, "Hey, about that whole thing, just because a guy learns and gets the tools like intellectually, doesn't mean he can apply them or that he's going to."
There are some people that will, though.
There's a ton of people who want to learn, but don't want to actually do it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I listen to, like, how to fish for pike. I've never done it, and I probably don't know if it'll happen anytime soon, but I still love to hear about it. So there's a lot of people who listen about elk hunting, I think, especially whitetail hunters that are like,
They might not ever get to come out to the West and hunt,
They want to hear, they want to learn, they want to be part of it.
Big population of elk hunters that just don't completely believe what we're telling them.
Yeah.
So they'll kind of halfway do it.
Right.
Well, you have to either be all in or all out.
Especially like
you can't be a clear cut and bugler hunter. You're not going to do it like that.
Yeah,
you're either one or the other.
Or finesse it instead of like charging, screaming, aggressive.
You sneak in and bugle. Man, you just got to charge in.
Yeah.
No, we'd like to say, first 1 to 20 wins, right? It's the reality of it. It's like the first. You still have to come out and beat us at our game.
Yeah, very true.
And experience will win out over the knowledge from the experience will win out over just knowledge or just reading about it.
So you guys have how many DVDs?
There is 4.
4 DVDs.
And then we made a VHS years ago that's not really public, but there's about 20 or 30 of them out there somewhere.
Collector's items.
Pretty neat stuff. Actually, I just came across one, and I took it from him because
awesome.
I didn't have my own copy of it.
That is awesome. So 4 DVDs and a VHS. So can people buy those?
Yeah, you can. I know season 2006, Raging Roosevelt and Roosevelt Rampage are still in circulation in places.
I have both of those.
You do. And then 2005, though, that one I'm not having any more made. But what we will do is take that and put it on like a YouTube channel or something like that. Mm-hmm.
But you don't have an online place to order them?
Not yet. No, that's kind of what we're working on doing moving forward, or if something else better comes along, then we'll
in the beginning, I never wanted to be in the retail aspect of it. Just didn't want that.
I'm telling you, man, VHX.
That's right.
I have my film up on VHX from the Full Draw Film Tour last year, and we have a few films that are in production right now. I don't want to be in the shipping, ordering, getting DVDs business. I don't want to. I don't have the time. So they're up there. It's available. If somebody wants it, they can get it, download it to their device, watch it on their Roku or whatever in their house, their internet, whatever. Get it on your phone, iPad. It's available if people want it. But once I upload it, I'm done.
There, yeah. And that's, obviously we would be smart to try to get something, for you to be able to use. Get things out to the gritty community that they can see, whether it's, just a short 10 or 15-minute video, something that we can put together, or we can get it from the past and get it on there. Because I think there's a lot of people that benefit from seeing some of the stuff we were actually talking about.
Totally.
Right? To be able to put, visual to the words is huge. So not just hang them on the wall.
Well, and there's really just a few guys that I've talked to people about a blacktail film. Hey, where's the hunting blacktails? And everyone, like even Scott Haugen, who's done a lot of this, he's like, nobody wants to pay for a blacktail film because they're as boring as hell. Because the guy goes out and he sits for 2 or 3 weeks and doesn't see a single animal, and then he comes home and they can't afford to.
Well, when's the best time to blacktail hunt? It's the worst time to film.
Right.
It's pouring down rain.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? You're going to sacrifice your $2,500 camera setup to go film in the rain?
Or it's last light.
Last light,
or just barely light in the morning. It's
from his angle, which is 3 feet from you, he doesn't see the blacktail.
Totally,
because all you can see is
it's
this
hole.
much of it.
Yes, it's tough. Man.
And in the same respect, hunting Roosevelt, there's no film, no hunting communities that are really going after that market because for the same challenges. Yeah. But there's Angry Spike Productions, there's ZMA. And
Born and Raised.
There's Born and Raised Outdoors.
Those are the only ones ballsy enough to try to do this with
those
Roosevelts.
are like it, as far as I know. And what I like about all three of those is they're just gritty, like
it's the epitome
raw,
of
like hunting at its just most. There's nothing. None of those productions are overproduced. None of them are like recreates. None of them are. They're just hunters that love to get out that I can relate to that are just hardcore, gritty kind of dudes. So it's pretty cool. And so I think you guys have that whole niche area as well. Like, you've proven you can do it. You know how to do it. And being able to keep sharing that would be cool. So I look forward to whatever you guys come out with next. And when you guys do get something and you want to blast it out, or you got any stuff, I'm excited to share it with our community.
We've got 3 seasons of footage now from
I have about 12 hours in my editing program right now that I have to get down to reasonable.
Nice.
So, and then that will probably obviously bump up with the 2016 season. We're also doing not an actual Prince of Wales hunt, but our ASP group is going to go to an island just off the northwest side of Prince of Wales. It's actually was attached at one point.
So southeast Alaska.
Yeah, but southeast, and we're going to do a Sitka blacktail hunt the last week of August.
That's this year?
Yeah, of this year.
Sweet.
Yeah, so I would personally like to be able to at least film some of that. Because I think that could be some little
to
extra
me, that
credit.
fits right in with the whole Roosevelt thing.
That's right. So, and then some other things that we might explore in the future, branch out a little bit from Roosevelt Elk, but this is where it's at for us. I know one guy in particular has one specific goal in mind, and until that happens, we're probably not going very far from home. So it's going to be
300 or bust.
Yep.
Nice.
I will hunt until I can't hunt anymore. I got to get a 300 plus inch Roosevelt, man. I tell you, I don't have one. They're close, but none of them are over it.
Wow.
So I tell him my goal now is I get the 265 to 299 range, and he gets anything over 3.
What's that Rocky score?
That's 393 gross right there.
So he wants a 300 Rosie. He's got a 390. That's just ridiculous, man. I'm going to throw a bunch of video in here, so just to remind people, check that out.
So I got that Rocky thing out of the way. Focus on them Roosevelt.
That's right. This Roosevelt.
I got that out of the way in it was 3 days.
Seriously, that's ridiculous. Your Rocky, you'll never outdo your Rocky achievement.
That's what everybody says. Like, why even go on?
One and done. Yeah, look at the third on that on our left side. 25-inch third on that side, and the mass is just retarded.
Yeah, it's a neat bull, man. They're all here. They're all neat. It's a nice room. It's a nice room. Well done.
It's a lot of years of memory and success right there hanging on the wall.
It is. Very cool. I like the saw blade, the whole logging.
That was a gift.
Really?
From Dan, yeah.
It's very cool.
No, that is awesome.
Well, guys, thanks for coming on the
Thanks
podcast.
for having us.
Thanks for coming up and having us on. Appreciate it.
Keep doing what you're doing, man. I love it.
Thanks.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Yep. It's fun to listen to. It's like what you were talking about earlier. I wait for weekly or whatever. For every once in a while, you'll spill 3 of them out like over 3 days.
I know.
Great, you know.
It's you guys know. It's just getting the time to produce. I have hours and hours of podcasts, so don't expect this to air anytime soon. I'm going to try to get it out.
On there tomorrow.
Elk hunting is coming up, but
yeah,
I'm getting better at producing faster.
Yeah. Well, they seem to go pretty good. I mean, I don't know when you film them all, but it seems like you get them cranked out pretty quick. So
there's a few like I've got a few.
Yeah.
Like some from ATA still haven't got out yet. That's January.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
some more elk nuggets coming.
Yeah.
I want to get Phelps on for some more nuggets. Those are just fun. We just have a hoot. It's a good time. So,
and probably a lot of it depends on the content too. What you're talking about, what's relevant at the time. You might now have a bunch of stuff that you're like, what I did back then doesn't. It's why even put it on there?
Yeah,
you know?
Some of it has an age to it.
Yeah.
Some of it doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, so some of it I feel like I got to get it out now because there's something happening in 2 weeks, or it's about a certain event that's upcoming, or it's a topic that's relevant in the media currently. But other times it's like we just talked about, hunting elk, and it's timeless.
It's timeless.
So,
yep.
All right, guys.
Share it with others. All right.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Stay gritty.
Stay gritty.
I really hope you enjoyed that podcast with Angry Spike Productions. Feel free to help them out by downloading one of their shows. It's a win-win for everyone. It helps out these local guys, and you get to see some real and raw, old-school Roosevelt elk hunting at its finest. On another note, I know that I've been promising this big gear giveaway for months, and I promise you we'll deliver on that this month. If you're a fan of Gritty Bowman, and I hope you are, and you want to support the show, there are a few things you can do. Check out our Gritty shop, and if you haven't already, please go to iTunes and leave us a review. And as always, you can help us out by forcing your friends to listen to your favorite episodes on long car rides. Sincerely, thank you for everything. Without your support, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing with the Gritty Bowman right now. I can't say thank you enough. Stay gritty.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowman.